Days, the WNBA players are going to decide if they want to go on strike, and if they decide to go on strike, apparently that could be the end of the WNBA. The WNBA cannot come back from this.
So people thought Angel Reese was insane last year when she said, yeah, CBA's coming up. We deserve more. Because I'm here, and if y'all don't give us what we want, we sitting out. What are you, crazy? Sit out and crush all the momentum from Caitlin Clark? Well, guess what? Just this week, W players voted yes on a strike. Not on strike yet, but...
The tape reveals something deeply unsettling. The headlines present one version of events, while the timing tells a completely different story. That disconnect speaks volumes on its own. What if all that celebration was never about success at all, but instead served to mask a decision that had already been firmly locked in place? The cheering continued unabated, yet the numbers began to shift in the wrong direction, sliding sideways until, suddenly, everything went dark. Stay with this, because the ending only truly makes sense once you realize it had been carefully orchestrated long before anyone was willing to admit it.
4 hours, the WNBA could be dead. Not dead like, oh, the ratings are down dead. I'm talking about the league that just had the most successful season in its history. The league that finally got mainstream attention. The league that everybody's been waiting 28 years to see take off. That league might literally cease to exist. And the craziest part, the players are the ones that are about to pull the trigger, because right now as I'm recording this, WNBA players are literally 1 day away from potentially going on.
This should have been the breakthrough moment, the victory tour, the chapter everyone would point to and say, look, we finally cracked the code. Instead, it feels like watching a celebration where the party is still going. The energy remains high, but someone is quietly cleaning up in the background, and no one is brave enough to stop and ask what is really happening.
It was 98% yes, Paige, but if this happens, it could be the end of the WNBA as we know it, because other leagues are popping up saying, hey, you don't like the W? Come play here. We'll pay you more.
Oh, I would let them. If I was the WNBA, I would let any players that wanted to go play in this other league play in that league. Because if we couldn't make money as the WNBA, literally the WNBA, you're going to take the same players that we had and you're going to find a way to make money. I would watch and see what they do. And if it does work out, I would use their business model.
Because in just a matter of days, this league will no longer be dealing with a minor disagreement or a symbolic gesture of solidarity. They are staring down a decision of an entirely different magnitude, the kind of choice that can destroy leagues altogether. A complete work stoppage, not a token protest or a brief timeout, but the kind of shutdown that halts all forward progress, shatters fan loyalty, and hands every competitor with a business plan the exact opportunity they have been waiting for.
Bro, this is getting crazy, and these people are actually delusional. I made a video a couple of days ago talking about the WNBA, and 97% of the WNBA players said that they were going to go on strike if they weren't paid what they were owed. Now, the average amount that a WNBA player makes is like $120,000 a year, which I think is good for a league that doesn't make any money. But the WNBA came to the table and said, okay, for you guys to play another season, we're willing to pay you, on average, the new wage would be $540,000.
What is truly terrifying is not how divided everyone appears to be, but how aligned they actually are. When 98% of people agree on something this drastic, it is not a sign of solidarity. It is a countdown timer quietly ticking away. None of this happened overnight, even though everyone is behaving as if they were completely blindsided by it.
What are the WNBA stars actually fighting about? Well, it's simple. They're only fighting about money. And that's a way to simplify everything, but it's way more complicated than that. See, it's not just about how much the players get paid, it's about how they get paid. And this is where things get really interesting. Right now, WNBA players get about 9 to 10% of league revenue. The league's supermax salary in 2025 was $249,244. The average salary was $120,000. The minimum was just $66,000.
The minimum salary was just $66,000. Red flags were flying everywhere, like smoke detectors blaring while someone taped up a note claiming everything was fine, or simply talked over the alarm. 12 months earlier, when certain players suggested that walking away might actually be an option, the response was nervous laughter mixed with genuine disbelief. Walk away now. When the league was experiencing the largest wave of mainstream attention in its history, that sounded like suggesting you unplug someone's life support at the very moment they finally opened their eyes. And yet, here we are, facing exactly what everyone swore could never happen. The twist is almost beautiful in its cruelty. The league finally achieved what it had been chasing for decades: real mainstream coverage, sold-out venues, legitimate television ratings, and actual cultural impact. And right when it all materialized, the foundation began to crack and fall apart. The explanation is not complicated. No matter how many inspirational quotes end up printed on merchandise, this ultimately comes down to money, timing, and expectations colliding at the absolute worst possible moment. One athlete entered this league and shifted the entire atmosphere. Contests that once passed by unnoticed suddenly became must-see events. Viewership did not just climb, it exploded. Regular season games that had previously struggled to attract even modest audiences suddenly looked like prime-time entertainment. Even games she was not part of caught a kind of residual momentum the league could not figure out how to manage. Championship games that once flew under the radar suddenly produced numbers that made it impossible to keep pretending nothing had changed.
That's all I have in me today. We have been covering this WNBA CBA stuff from the beginning, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. It never feels like we are getting anywhere. I never feel like I have good updates for you guys, and I'm getting tired of the fact that I also feel like every time I sit down, I'm complaining about something, and that's just not my personality. I'm not going to continue to sit here and complain about something or rant about something or be angry about something and not be able to make a change.
That is exactly where the tension began. Acknowledging that a single athlete fundamentally changed the league's financial reality made every other conversation far more complicated. It forced uncomfortable calculations directly onto the table. And math does not negotiate with emotions, storylines, or whoever happens to be dominating social media feeds. It simply stares back, demanding to know why a sudden explosion in revenue failed to translate into actual profit. From the outside, the timing looked perfect. A new media rights agreement landed precisely as interest peaked. Expansion money poured in, with new franchises paying astronomical fees just for the privilege of joining. From any external perspective, it appeared the league had finally reached the promised land. But inside the books, the story looked completely different. Here is the part no one wants to acknowledge publicly. The league continues to bleed money. Not in small amounts, but in serious, sustained losses. Somehow, during the very year when attention skyrocketed, those losses climbed to record highs. That seems impossible until you understand that spending accelerated just as quickly as income, sometimes even faster, and often in areas that had little to do with audience growth. Quietly, the focus shifted from asking how to stabilize success to asking how to upgrade a lifestyle.
Rivaled league and the ratings are an embarrassment. They're a statement about how little interest there actually is in women's basketball beyond Caitlin Clark. The fact that they can't reach a CBA agreement and be confident that there's actually going to be a 2026 season of the WNBA because these idiots, Angel Reese and the rest, are like, oh man, if y'all not paying us $1 million, $2 million a season, we're not playing. They've offered these.
All of a sudden, this league stopped being only about basketball and became about appearances, comfort, and projecting an image of stability that had not yet been proven financially. Private jets became the ultimate symbol, not because travel safety does not matter, but because of what they actually represent. A league that has never generated profit demanding one of the most expensive luxuries in professional sports. That is not a negotiating tactic. It is a breaking point. Private aircraft sound impressive until you calculate the reality. One flight out, one flight back, multiplied across every team and every staff member over an entire season. The cost quickly balloons into something that could single-handedly fund meaningful salary increases. You can almost hear the spreadsheets crying as they are completely ignored. The irony is that commercial travel, inconvenient as it may be, could actually strengthen the connection between players and the fans they desperately need to retain. Public visibility builds loyalty. Visibility creates intrigue, while mystery is not always helpful when you are fighting for cultural relevance. This is where salary conversations become completely twisted. The figures being discussed are real, and they are not insignificant. Average compensation has climbed into ranges most people would gladly accept for doing something they are passionate about for half the year. Minimum salaries can and should improve, but they are not poverty wages. The issue is not that athletes want more. The issue is the sequence in which those demands are being made.
WNBA player said that that's still not enough, and if you don't pay us, there's a rival league that we're going to get paid out to go to, and they're going to compete with you directly. Now, the numbers just came out for this supposed rival league, really the only thing that gave them even an inkling of leverage in this negotiation. Their numbers just came out, and it turns out they lost 65% of their viewership in the year of 2025. So now they just have nowhere to go. 65% drop. WNBA players begging for
a work stoppage does not reduce your income. It eliminates it entirely. Zero income is not negotiating leverage. Zero is stepping off a cliff. While the biggest stars can afford to stand at that edge and strike poses, middle-tier players absolutely cannot. Not because finding common ground is impossible, but because bitterness crept into the negotiations. Once that happens, rational thinking slips out the back door. Positions hardened, stances turned concrete. What should have been a process of give and take became a prolonged staring contest where both sides treated any sign of flexibility as a loss. The league put forward figures that would have sounded like fantasy just a few years earlier, enormous increases across every level, historic jumps in averages, and a future that, while not perfect, looked dramatically better than what came before. The response was not cautious optimism. It was fury. That was the moment things shifted from ambitious to genuinely dangerous. Negotiations are supposed to end with both sides somewhat dissatisfied. That is how you know neither side got everything it wanted. When one party reacts to a massively improved proposal as if it were an insult, the conversation stops being about fairness and becomes about power. At the heart of this standoff is revenue sharing, a concept that sounds reasonable until you examine the details. Revenue sharing means dividing income, not profit. It ties player compensation to the league's financial ups and downs, a model that only truly works in leagues that consistently make money.
The miss over there at the WNBA with a big shakeup on the horizon. And from the looks of it, the women over there are on the verge of losing absolutely everything due to pure arrogance, if not ego. And it's sort of like within the modern dating marketplace today, some of these women out here wildly overestimating who they are or the value that they are actually providing to a man. All right. So over the past several years, it's been one name and one name only that has put in the WNBA on its back, and that name is Caitlin Clark.
It creates serious problems in leagues that have survived on subsidies and hope. When you demand the benefits, you also inherit the risks. Debt does not disappear simply because the spotlight finally arrives. All of those postponed decisions are coming due at the same time, demanding answers, and no one has rehearsed for what comes next. The harshest reality is that not everyone carries the same level of risk. The superstars will survive. They have sponsorship deals, visibility, and alternatives. If the league goes dark, they will adapt, make guest appearances, earn income elsewhere, and ride it out. The typical player does not have those options. They become collateral damage in a conflict fueled by moral rhetoric and real financial consequences. History offers little comfort here. Sports leagues do not recover easily from work stoppages, especially when they are still fighting for cultural space. One strike, one lost season, and fans do not simply wait around. They move on. They find other leagues, other stories, and other heroes. Baseball learned this lesson brutally in the 1990s and never fully reclaimed its cultural dominance. And that was baseball. A true giant. The WNBA does not have that margin for error.
You guys, the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBPA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations.
While all of this chaos unfolds, competing leagues are positioning themselves like hungry startups at a networking event with free refreshments. They offer freedom, revenue sharing, and clean slates. They recruit talent quickly, fully aware that headlines matter more than long-term viability in the early stages. At the beginning, reality is unforgiving. Empty venues do not lie. Attention is not automatic just because skilled players show up. Infrastructure matters. Legacy matters. Momentum matters. Splitting the talent pool does not elevate women's basketball. It fractures it. Fans do not want to treat the sport like a research project, forced to decide which league matters this week. They want simplicity. They want meaning. They want something solid enough to justify their emotional investment. Confusion does not sell season tickets. This is why the situation feels less like standard negotiation and more like a dangerous game of chicken played at full speed. One path leads to uncomfortable compromises and steady progress toward a future that may not be glamorous, but is sustainable. The other leads to short-term validation and long-term disaster. Success has finally arrived, and now there is talk of destroying it to make a statement. History shows that statements offer little comfort once a league disappears. So the question hangs in the air, heavy and unresolved. Is this truly about justice, or is it about confusing momentum with permanence? Is this a courageous stand for tomorrow, or the fastest way to erase it? Because leagues do not collapse when no one is paying attention. They collapse when everyone is watching at exactly the wrong moment.
It's too early for this, chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree. I think if the WNBA let them titties fly and put an 8-foot rim so women could straight, you know what I'm saying? Titties just straight flopping. More people would watch, dude. I would watch a topless NBA with an 8-foot rim. Women just straight, yeah. Female Vince Carter's just double through the leg, just yeah. Yeah, like most of these women are 6'5" anyways. You just put your hand up and it's a dunk. I don't know why they think that we should pay them more when nobody watches this sport.
If this truly becomes the final chapter, it will not be remembered as an unexpected crash. It will be remembered as the moment success finally arrived. Expectations skyrocketed, and patience quietly walked away first. What makes this entire situation even more bizarre is the confidence everyone displays while standing on such unstable ground. There seems to be a lingering assumption that if the league takes a break, the audience will simply wait, as if fans are hitting refresh and holding their breath out of pure loyalty. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of how modern sports attention works. Attention is merciless. It disappears instantly and rarely looks back. One missing season does not register as a pause to fans. It feels like a cancellation. The truly tragic part is that the league finally possessed leverage that did not require ultimatums. Television ratings were climbing, merchandise was selling, expansion interest was real. The smarter move would have been to secure stability, prove profitability, and then renegotiate from a position of undeniable strength. Instead, everything is being gambled on the assumption that momentum is permanent. Momentum is actually the most fragile asset of all, because it depends on people caring tomorrow exactly as much as they care today. Lost in all this chaos is the reality that periods of growth are naturally unstable. Every successful league endured an awkward phase when budgets were tight, benefits were basic, and patience was essential. Skipping that phase does not accelerate success. It usually destroys the foundation before it hardens. You cannot build a skyscraper on concrete that has not yet cured.
She's been too busy being a pop icon, I guess, showing them cheeks off on her Instagram. Nevertheless, what we're here today to do is to analyze the arrogance and also the delusion within the comparison of the NBA or the expectations of men, right? And also to do a deep dive into the misunderstanding of business. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, one of which I intend.
Meanwhile, the alternative leagues lingering in the background are neither heroes nor villains. They are businesses chasing an opening. They promise everything because promises cost nothing at the startup stage. What they cannot promise is staying power, visibility, or lasting cultural significance. History is full of leagues that launched loudly and faded quietly, leaving players scrambling and fans wondering what actually mattered. If this strike materializes, the aftermath will not look as dramatic as many imagine. There will be no explosions or instant collapse. Instead, there will be quiet emptiness, schedules disappearing, conversations fading, and momentum slowly bleeding away week after week until a return feels theoretical rather than inevitable. That is how leagues die now, not in anger, but in indifference. By the time everyone realizes the leverage has evaporated, it is already too late to rebuild it. Genuine interest cannot be manufactured twice. You get one window when culture is paying attention, and this was that window. That is what makes watching this unfold so painful. Not because players want more, but because the timing could not be more destructive. When everything is said and done, this is not a choice between respect and money. It is a choice between long-term survival and short-term theater. One path requires swallowing frustration and thinking strategically. The other feels empowering in the moment and devastating later. If this league truly does shut down, even temporarily, the explanation will not be complicated. It will be remembered as the moment growth was confused with permanence and leverage was mistaken for invincibility. Not because nobody cared, but because everyone assumed caring would be enough. That assumption has destroyed more leagues than any shortage of talent ever could.